Hello there, welcome to this quick video on what is Warhammer the Old World, where I'm going to be talking through these three questions. What is it? How is it different? And why is it better than other similar games? I'm really excited about the re-release of this game. It's been gone for about 10 years. Games Workshop ditched it about 10 years ago because it wasn't selling as well as 40k and other games. I am led to believe that certain paints were selling better than the old Warhammer Fantasy, so I'm really glad they've given it a new lease of life, and I can't wait to get stuck into it again. I think it's better, I genuinely do, and this is my video explaining why. If you disagree, write in the comments, and, I'll try and respond. Oh, just clicked on the wrong thing. It's going well. So who is it for? It's for people who like fantasy. That's it, really. If you like dragons and archers and knights clashing across ancient battlefields, hordes of the undead beating themselves to dust against the shields of a dwarven host, high elves fighting their darker kin, men of the Empire arrayed in serried ranks of halberds and cannon, staring down a rampaging horde of Northmen. This is the game for you. It's kind of got a lot of nods to our own history, in that the old world map is pretty similar to our world, and there is an element of that. However, there is this massive overlay of some kind of fantastic realm within the world that we're all fighting over to protect your own, or to destroy your enemies, or whatever. It's fairly well defined as well, which I quite like. More than this, however, it does teach you a lot of skills. I'm someone who, I think I've learned a lot from this hobby over the years. I think it gave me all of these skills that I've learnt to employ when I went out and became an adult. So it teaches you to be creative, it teaches you how to paint models, it teaches you how colours work, which is surprisingly useful in the real world. It teaches you some sort of minor engineering skills too. You see this in the sort of top right here, this conversion going on. It teaches you how to construct things, how to build things. It teaches you how to solve problems. Especially if you're building some scenery, which is, how you get this sort of stuff on. That's a 40k game. I couldn't find a picture of people playing the old world, probably because it hasn't been launched for very long. But, there are some fantastic scenery boards where, if you're building a river, how do you build a river that sits on top of a table yet still looks realistic? And how do you build a bridge, out of balsa wood? So there's loads of engineering sort of problem solving sort of skills that it teaches you. It teaches you project management and planning skills. So you see this army here, that's a massive army, that will take years to achieve. But it teaches you how to get there in bite-sized chunks. So you might start off with a little unit of whatever they are, I'm not sure what they are, they're little crossbowmen. So you might start off with a little unit of crossbowmen and a battle standard bearer, and maybe next time you buy a wizard on a thing, and then you'll go for a cannon and a hellblaster and a whatever, and then gradually over time you start to build up this larger project. It involves a lot of list writing as well, sitting down with your lists and working out what you're going to actually end up with as a 2,000 point army, so that you get that planning. When I say 2,000 points, that's kind of like the standard for an army. Points basically reflect how many soldiers you're going to have. Some soldiers cost less than others because they're not as good. it's social. You do it with other people. You go and sit in a room full of other people with a similar interest, and you know, it can really help you to find your tribe. So it's really good for that. It involves proper tactics and proper strategy. So in terms of the strategic, it teaches you to continually improve your performance on the table, because you learn what your stuff does. You learn the rules over time. You know, there's quite a lot of rules. It's quite complicated, but you learn it all over time. And people are really super forgiving. So it's a great hobby for that. It also teaches you resource management and budgeting, because, you know, it's not the most expensive hobby in the world, but it still does cost money. And getting to that, like I said, 2,000 points is probably going to set you back as much money as a new PlayStation would. But you can do it over time. You know, you can buy little bits as you go along towards your overall project of your 2K list. And you might take a sort of smaller army of like 700, 800 points, whatever, take it to a local club, play somebody in a quick game, realise you need, you know, you might have thought your next purchase was a cannon, but then after that first game you might think, well, actually I need some cavalry now. So you then go off and do that, and then expand organically. And it teaches you that resource management in terms of the resources that you've got on the tabletop. It's really good for that. So I think it's a great hobby that teaches you a lot of skills that you can actually, that are transferable, you know. So what marks it out? To me, one of the most important things is there are no strict rules on what models to use, and I think that's super, super important. So that guy there is the Green Knight, right? That's if you want the Green Knight, you've got to buy that model and do it like that, because it's a named character and it's very specific. But if you want, you know, a generic Chaos Lord that you called, you know, whatever you want to call them, Odd Job Griffonius or something, whatever you decide to call it, you can pick any of the gnarly dudes from the model ranges that Games Workshop offer and use it as your Chaos Lord. You can pick 2 or 3 model kits and squash them together and say, that's my Chaos Lord. It's very different to 40k or Age of Sigmar in that if you want an Exalted Champion of Chaos in Age of Sigmar, you have to buy the Exalted Champion of Chaos model. That's the model. That's the Exalted Champion. No ifs, no buts. That's what it is. In Fantasy, you could take a normal Chaos Warrior champion, give him a different helmet, give him a different sword like that looks demonic, paint him so he's a bit more gaudy and a bit more, and that can be your Chaos Lord. You know, it's way more flexible in terms of model choice. There are also so many character creators out there nowadays, and that you can use with like 3D printing to really let your imagination run riot as to what you want your army to look like. Just be a bit careful though, taking stuff that's not Games Workshop to a Games Workshop store. They'll tell you you're not allowed to use those models, so just be a bit careful. But if you're going to like a normal gaming club, like your local gaming club, take what you like. People really genuinely don't care, they just want to have fun. And it's a proper strategy game, you know. If you manage to outmaneuver your opponent and get off that critical flank charge, it really makes a difference to what happens in the combat. So it's a proper strategy game. It's not like you have blobs of stuff that move around the table and then occasionally interact. You actually have units that do things, that have jobs, you know. It's like being on the rugby field, you know, everything has a job. Everybody has a job, and it doesn't matter what it is, everybody's got a different job. You've got your forwards, you've got your wingers, you've got your scrum, everybody's got a job. So, which is very different to other strategy games in that essentially quite often what you see in other games is the more successful lists are the ones that take their best thing over and over and over and over and over again. Fantasy's not like that. I suppose the other thing that I really like about Fantasy is that stuff does what the models look like it should do. So if you've got a big unit of Chaos Warriors who are like 8-foot tall behemoths, clad head to toe in steel and leather, then they're tough, they're hard, they're strong. There's not very many of them though, because they're quite expensive. Not in terms of cash, but in terms of points and getting them on the tabletop. But that reflects reality, because you got to feed big people more, and metal and armor costs quite a bit of money. So it's about resource management. And if you've got a unit of puny archers, then maybe they'll sting a bit at distance when they fire their bows, but once you're close with them, they fold like a very foldable thing. But it's a proper strategy game. I suppose the other thing is, my memories of Fantasy are that you don't really ever win games by there are dice involved, so you need to roll dice to add a random element to it. So it's not chess. It's a bit like chess, but it's not chess. It's more complicated than chess and harder than chess, but to a degree. However, with other game systems, I've had several games in other game systems where the dice have decided the result, whereas in Fantasy that happened. I can't actually recall a game that I had where it was just the dice that did it. So skill really does matter, and the dice just add a bit of fun. And finally, it's rich history. It's where Games Workshop started. I really still don't understand why they abandoned it as a game system. Like, if they wanted to introduce a new thing with Age of Sigmar and keep doing Fantasy and just shelve it for a bit, I don't see why they needed to. That to me seems like, and I know I don't want to be one of those people that whinge about the decisions of corporate entities. Like, they're there to make money. We get it, I get it, but it's got such a rich history and such a passionate following that I'm super hopeful with this reigniting of the classic tabletop fantasy game. It's more or less where tabletop fantasy games started for a lot of people, and so this picture is a picture from many years ago. I don't even know what edition of Warhammer Fantasy this picture's from. You can see it's sort of slightly 90s, so probably around about then. But you can see the passion that millions of people have put into this over the years. I'm really glad it's back. And it's getting supported, and we're getting new models, and it's great. So I'd encourage anybody who's thinking about maybe taking a break from Age of Sigmar 40k, or they're playing another rank and flank style game and want to have a go at something that's, I think, better, get stuck in. Anyway, thanks for listening. I hope this has been helpful. Please leave a comment if you've got a difference of opinion. More than happy to have a chat. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you again in the next one. Toodaloo.